And I ain't got no food to come home to? Huh?
Why you didn't get something on your way home?
No.
This is leftovers that I had from last night.
But I'm saying I can't come home to a full course meal. What we married for?
That's a great question.
What we married for?
It's a great question.
I'm not your mama. I'm your wife.
Oh,
Wow.
she hit him with that.
Thank you, feminism.
But I think that more proves his point because it's not his mom's job to feed him or cook for him. It's his wife's job now. Like, imagine if somebody was harassing my wife and I said, I'm not your bodyguard. Imagine if my wife was on the side of the road and I said, I'm not AAA. It's the same logic.
Thank you, Betty Friedan, for writing The Feminine Mystique. And thank you, postmodernism and decades of double standards for corrupting this marriage.
Right.
Why else would she think it's okay to say, I'm not your mama, after you pulled a 13-hour shift to pay her bills?
I just pulled a 13-hour shift.
Yeah, 13 hours is a long time.
You being my wife, I pay all the bills in here.
All the dishes clean, your clothes clean. Wait, what?
You don't fix me no lunch for my job.
No, that's insane. That's insane. And this man is working 13 hours a day. 13 hours is so long. That is majority of your day. And that's not including the 8 hours you need to sleep, the time it takes to get to work. You got to eat at some point. You got to take a shower, wash your ass at some point. 13 hours is an insane day of work to not get fed. This is domestic violence. This is abuse. And it's to the point where it's like either you make the sandwich or you get a knuckle sandwich. If I'm working 13 hours a day, make the sandwich or you get a knuckle sandwich.
Now, imagine if she came to him one day calling him a dusty or a loser who can't pay a bill, and he said, but I worked 4 hours today. I do have a job. Yeah, but you're still not putting in your full effort. So in this situation, it looks like he's all in with his 13 hours, yet she is patting herself on the back with laundry, which largely does itself because a machine does most of the work.
That's true.
And dishes, which also largely do themselves.
That's true.
Your dishes clean, your clothes clean, your clothes. You always got them clean clothes when you go to work, don't you?
Which of the clean dishes are his? If he didn't eat and earlier you're telling him to get takeout, then those would be your dishes.
Yeah, that's
Again,
true.
What does it
Good
matter
point.
if he's going all in for you, but you don't give him that same respect?
Right.
Speaking of respect, let's talk about boundaries.
She did 10 minutes worth of work for the day and then just scrolled on TikTok all day.
But before we do that, though, I have to throw in some disclaimers. This video is going to be based under the assumption that the events in it are real because I cannot verify where it came from. Someone posted it on Twitter. There's a TikTok at in the watermark, but that just leads to a bunch of random videos and not the person who filmed it. Therefore, I cannot tell you if it's real or not. However, it brings up some interesting topics for discussion, so we're going to behave as if it is real. Second, I know everyone wants to jump on the wife for acting childish because people did that on Twitter, but also note that in my opinion, the husband crossed a line as well when he filmed this and aired his relationship drama out on the internet, even after the wife asked him to stop recording.
Why you always recording for your raggedy cousins? Can you stop recording me?
I've criticized women for doing this in videos like this one here, and I also think it's wrong when men air out their personal drama online. This conversation should not have been recorded. I mean, imagine if someone was sitting there recording every little relationship argument that you had.
Yeah.
That being said, what we're experiencing here...
The exception to the rule, though, is if a woman's being violent towards you. Because once you retaliate, unless you got to record it, the police are going to believe her 100% of the time. So in those instances, it is definitely smart for you to record and to make sure that if she does start to slander your name and start calling you abusive and all these other things, you have some type of video evidence in order to protect yourself, because the law does not protect a man that has no proof that he did not initiate a domestic violence situation. They're always going to believe the woman. The woman gets a say. You have to prove. So those are two totally different things. You are guilty until proven innocent. So in those situations, I think it's smart to record.
Here in this video is a bit of a train wreck where the husband is bringing up his issues, and the wife looks like she doesn't really care, as she's not even facing her body towards him while they're talking. It's to the point where you can hear a crack in his voice, and you kind of feel sorry for him.
I can't come home to a full course meal. Working all these long goddamn hours, I can't come home to a full course meal.
Yeah, that's crazy.
What appears to be happening here is a person not thinking about what it's like to live in someone else's shoes. Kind of on both sides, considering the fact that he recorded it. And I think that's actually a very common problem in relationships that aren't going well. People can't see things from the perspective of the other person. I don't know how many of you have worked a 12-hour shift or more, but when you do that kind of labor and you add in the time it takes to get ready and drive to and from work, not to mention interacting with the kids, you basically are pulling a 14 to 16-hour day, and you have no time for anything but work and sleep.
Yeah, I'm just going to say it, though. Those two things aren't equivalent.
That or you start sleeping less, so you can see why he's upset, right? He's sacrificing all his time and maybe his sleep too, while having to eat whatever scraps of food happen to be left. But as far as we know, she gets to eat as she pleases. There's something unequal about this, and on top of that, she keeps dismissing him with a bunch of "you could have done this" style arguments.
I just knew I was gonna come home and have some food on the goddamn stove. And now you playing, man. You playing. You playing.
On your way home.
You playing. What the hell?
And you could have just cooked.
Married for?
What are you talking about?
She said that he could have gotten something on the way home. Now, thinking about the perspective of the other person, let me ask you, what's preferable? I work a 13-hour shift to drive straight home and get a meal that my wife made, or I detour to stop at a fast food place or a restaurant on the way home, wait between 10 and 20 minutes to order my food and have it made.
That's another good
point. And pay
point.
way more for it than it would cost to make it at home.
That's a great point.
So not only am I waiting more time for food, but I actually have to add in the extra time that I had to work to pay for the extra cost of getting the food at a restaurant versus getting it at home.
It's a good point.
Not to mention that if he comes home during rush hour, taking a detour to go get food could cost him an additional 10 to 20 minutes. If that's the case, then we now have taken a guy who already doesn't have time and added like half an hour onto his workday when he has a stay-at-home wife who could just make him food.
Right.
Or, if she didn't want to cook that day, couldn't she have gone out and got him something so he wouldn't have to? Think about his perspective. Speaking of, let's take a look at her perspective for a second.
You've been doing it for like 2 or 3 months, man. What is it? I can't get no food when I come to the house.
Forewarning, I'm going to fill in the blanks a lot here because we don't know the full context of this situation, but I'm going to give her the best possible interpretation I can think of.
Okay.
The husband says that this lack of cooking has been going on for a few months, so I'm going to assume that this is all recent, and up until this point, she was making food for him. So we have to ask, what changed? From my perspective, assuming that she's being reasonable, I always like to blame myself because taking responsibility gives you the power to change things. In this situation, I would ask myself, what did I do to cause her to not want to make food for me? Then I would work to change my behavior to see if it gets me what I want.
No. That's not how you do it. Marriage is about duty. So even when you're angry with somebody, you have to do the things that you need to do. Just because he's angry, he can't not pay the bills. Just because he's angry, if they go out somewhere, he still has to pay for the date. Just because he's angry, he doesn't mean he can avoid going to help his wife if she's stranded on the side of the road. There are certain duties that are a part of a marriage that you have to adhere to even if you're unhappy in that marriage. Because once you start to let your duties slip, the happiness just continues to decrease. It doesn't get better. Once you still have that stability of the things that you guys are supposed to do to show that you love each other, even if you're in a bad time, and those are your duties, once you have those in place, you have more longevity. I don't agree with bending your will. I think we can come and have a conversation and maybe meet in the middle and get a mutual understanding. But me as a man just bending my will in order to get my wife to do something that is supposed to be a duty if I'm going to do my duties, that doesn't make any sense to me.
I can only speculate, but there are plenty of common things that men do that will cause women to change their behavior and act passive-aggressively by doing things like refusing to do work that they previously did. Here's one of those things.
You know, one of the most interesting things is when another man tells me, yo, bro, look at the butt or the boobs on that girl over there. And I go, no, I'm good. That's okay. And then confused, they say, you're really not going to look? And I go, no, I'm good. And then they ask, do you like men? I find it absolutely hysterical that we live in a world where people would sooner assume that you're gay instead of that you're a married man who's faithful or that you're just not interested in looking.
A lot of guys do this, and this kind of stuff pisses women off, especially the ones who want to be trad wives. Of course, there are women who do this kind of thing too, and maybe both men and women should see it as a red flag if their partner is constantly looking at other people who are outside the relationship. But in my opinion, if this guy's wife was doing something before for years and suddenly stopped doing it, then it's possible that a bad behavior of his caused her to change. However, we have no evidence of that, and I was purely doing a hypothetical here as a chance for people to think about her perspective.
Yeah, he was definitely giving her the huge benefit of the doubt.
But let's get back to the information that we do have.
I make sure the kids good. They got school clothes, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
You good, right? I pay the goddamn car notes, right? But why the man in the house can't eat? Why I can't come on? I bet they ate today.
They did eat today. They eat every day.
Now, both of them...
Yeah, it was really interesting because when I was growing up, to show respect for my father and to show the hierarchical order of importance, my dad would always get served his plate first, and he would always get the biggest piece of chicken. But that's just how I grew up in a more traditional setup with my mom and my dad. She always made it a point to say that this is the provider of the household. He's the reason why we get a chance to eat. he gets served first, and then you guys can come and get the smaller pieces of whatever, whatever's left. And we always had plenty of food. It was never like we were starving, but it was always just a sign of respect to the person who contributed the stability that was necessary for us to be a family.
Them seem like they're handling their responsibilities with the kids. So let's remove the kids out of the equation here for a second and just focus on the issues between the husband and the wife. Based on what we know, it looks like he is taking care of her needs, but she's not taking care of his needs.
Yeah.
To the extent where she won't exchange niceties unless she's asked.
You don't even tell me to have a good day when I leave out the house.
Did you have a good day today?
This can't be real.
At least she tried
Can't
here,
be
but
real.
she misses the mark because of her prior actions in the video. I don't think her actions are fully out of malice, though. I think it's probably ignorance, and his needs are being ignored because a lot of people have trouble seeing outside themselves. It seems like most people assume that other people value the same things they do, which is why when you ask women what men find attractive, they will say things that women like instead of what men like. Oh, and just to be fair, the very people on those alpha male podcasts who make fun of women for being incorrect about men's values fail to see things from the women's perspective as well. For example, this podcast here that everyone's been talking about recently with John Doyle and this guy Jonathan telling women to endure physical abuse in a relationship.
If there's someone that's very, very young, might be really religious and like values marriage a lot,
That's
and goes
insane.
into a marriage and has kids when they're like 18, 19, 20, and then a year into the relationship, it gets really, really abusive. If it would happen, what would you recommend for those people to do? Would they divorce, or do you want them to keep going in the relationship?
Keep going.
You can't divorce. That's not a real thing.
Even though it might be like physically abusive?
You got to endure. People are too.
You want to stick in the
People
relationship?
are just.
I mean, look,
people
Oh,
nowadays
no.
are just pussies. Everybody fucking quits. Everybody.
Yeah, but even according to the Christian religion, you can get a divorce if there's domestic violence going on. And none of that financial abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, all that stuff. I'm talking about physical violence. If a woman is a threat of physical violence, she can't get a divorce. And if there's adultery committed, she can get a divorce, even through Christianity, from what I know of it.
gives up, and the reality is people just haven't learned to fucking endure.
And
Well,
80% of couples can recover from that in 5 years. And I think it's fundamentally selfish. And you can tell because the type of people who say that, they're like, well, I just wasn't happy, so it's better for the child. It's absolutely not. It's not better for the child.
This was
Yeah, that's
one of
true,
those
though.
moments where a lot of people have been saying, out of context. But in case you don't trust me, I linked the full context in the description, and it is much worse than what people clipped.
Yeah, but regardless, it is not good to split up a marriage when you have children. It does affect them negatively, even if that's the case. So they're right and wrong. They're wrong in saying that she isn't justified in leaving, but they are right when they talk about the results of them leaving. Anytime you split a family, the results are worse for kids.
Now, the other guy, whose name is Chase, provided a little more nuance, so I'll let him off the hook a bit. But when they're asked if men should endure cheating, all of them, with no nuance, agreed that the man should divorce her instead of enduring.
What about if two people get married, they have a kid, and then the wife starts cheating? Do you think they should divorce?
Absolutely.
They should divorce then?
Jesus himself
You don't
said.
think
But it wasn't
Jesus,
it
hold on.
adultery?
Jesus
and you
himself
could like
said.
work things through, right?
Jesus himself said, in cases of adultery, divorce is
So you think that
permissible.
divorce is worse than physical abuse?
No, for the
Or
children.
cheating, sorry. You think that
Cheating
cheating
is
is worse than physical abuse?
For the
Sorry.
children, yes.
Okay, wow. Weird that there wasn't an instant consensus like that when it was a woman being physically abused. Getting back to what I was saying before, people all over the place will fail to see things through other people's eyes and will project their values onto others, thinking everyone is mostly the same. When in reality, people can have all sorts of different values based on things like gender, culture, religion, and life experiences.
Yeah.
The husband and the wife in this video clearly have different values because after he lists off the things he provides for her and the kids, she responds with this.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Man, you know what?
Yeah, but that's because she's reached past gratitude and appreciation, and now she's at entitlement. That's the issue with a lot of women being taught what they should expect from men and not understanding what they should give to get what they want from men. There's a level of entitlement that comes with it where you believe that you don't have to do anything and a man should just do things while believing that you don't have to do anything to get that type of treatment. So she's just at a level of entitlement where she believes that it's his duty to provide for her, but she doesn't understand that it's also her duty to be a woman worth providing for.
Provide and protect. Provide and protect. That's what you're supposed to do.
So it seems like in her mind that she thinks that she's supposed to take care of just the kids and herself, while he's supposed to take care of everyone, including himself.
Right.
His well-being is not her responsibility, and that's what this argument is actually about. Not to say that she's doing nothing. This video was an ambush, and that kitchen is clean. The countertops are spotless, and things are organized. But outside of that, it looks like there's a values mismatch that should have been clearly communicated before the marriage. A really dumb move to make if you're going to take a massive risk like marrying someone is to not be upfront about your values early on in the relationship.
Yeah, I agree.
Your values should be very well communicated before that kind of commitment is made, because it's better to be single for the rest of your life than it is to come home to an argument every day.
Yeah, I think what happens to a lot of dudes is they get told a lie and then they convince themselves into believing it. They get told things like, if you want wife treatment, then you have to make me a wife. And that's just a lie. Oftentimes, it's just them selling you a dream. It's them selling you beachfront property in North Dakota. They're telling you a person that you'll get exclusive access to a person if you pay a premium price, and that person oftentimes doesn't even exist. I think guys have to do a better job at seeing women for who they are and not lying to themselves. A lot of dudes lie to themselves about what they see in a woman and who a woman is because they're desperate and they don't want the woman to leave, so they don't make any demands. Most of the time, you're not going to change somebody, and if you know how hard it is to change yourself, you know how hard it is to change somebody else.
They sure do. They eat every day. They're supposed to eat every
Because
day.
of who? Why your bank account got money in it? Why your bank account got money in it?
What you mean? Why my bank account got money in it? Why would
Because you able to keep your money from your job. You don't
That's
pay
crazy.
No goddamn
That's
bill.
crazy.
I pay the car note.
Yep.
The house note.
Yep. And this is where dudes get lost in the sauce. A lot of dudes will get tricked into this because their women will go to work and the dude will go to work, but the woman will still expect the man to pay majority of everything, and that's not 50-50. I don't care if you're going to work. If I'm paying 100% of the bills, you're doing 100% of the domestic labor. There was a new study by MSNBC that says that men are now doing majority of the domestic labor, and I just think that that's insane, and I actually think it's kind of funny because men are doing more domestic labor than ever before, but men are divorced at higher rates than ever before. So women will go to work, and instead of contributing to the family, they're told that they should set up a nest egg just out of fear in case their husband leaves them, when majority of the time it's the women filing for divorce at like a 75% rate. So it's majority of the time the women actually leaving. But these women will go to work, they'll set a nest egg up for themselves if they need to jump ship, and then they'll start telling you that you need to contribute to the domestic labor because they're tired from getting home from work. But if you're working and not contributing to the bills and you also expect me to split the domestic labor with you, I'm giving way more than you are. What are you contributing? And a lot of dudes get caught in that trap right there. Letting a woman go to work to save her own money as a nest egg in order to jump ship and sacrifice nothing for the relationship, chase their own dreams and chase their career while you sacrifice everything to keep everything afloat.
Every sport they in, I pay for it. Family trips, I'm paying for that. You work from home.
So we might have an argument here that the reason that she can't make him food is because she also has a job. Two things. She's already making food for herself and the kids. That being said, is it really that much more work to make an extra serving? Is it really that difficult to order a bigger pizza so your husband can eat too?
Right.
Second, if all the bills are already being paid and the health of her relationship is being compromised by having a job, then she should quit that job or work fewer hours.
Right.
A few extra dollars for a new purse is not worth a chaotic household.
Right.
But anyway, I'm going to take this video in a different direction than the red pill types do, because I can hear my inner alpha male podcast saying, that chick did something wrong, divorce her instantly. I think those guys are far too quick to say things like that over small issues that can be easily fixed with a little communication, much like how Betty Friedan and the feminists of a few decades ago told women to divorce their husbands and raise their kids in a broken family.
I think the bigger issue is men are not leaving their marriages, though. Because men have an invested interest into their marriages, and men will lose half of everything they've worked for if they do decide to get a divorce. Women are the only ones in the marriage that are paid if they leave to quit something hard. Imagine if we were both in a boat. It was me and one other person in a boat, and we had to row in the entire Pacific Ocean, and the other person got paid money if they chooses to quit. Would we be surprised if more of those people chose to quit than the people who had to make it to the other side in order to get the benefit of doing the rowing? So there are a lot of men that are willing to suffer in silence for the sake of duty, especially for their commitment to their marriages. But the women are incentivized to destroy their marriages, and you're seeing women do it at a 75% rate when it comes to the divorce. And so the idea that these alpha male podcasts are convincing men en masse to leave their marriages is just not even accurate, statistically speaking.
Because they felt unfulfilled in the home. These issues on the man or the woman's side probably have similar solutions. Usually in relationships, both parties are guilty when a thing goes wrong, but in this case, we don't have any information on what the wife's grievances are, so we're just going to focus on the husband. What the husband is essentially communicating is that he doesn't feel appreciated. He does all this work, and when he gets home, no one cares.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, this problem is easy to fix, and there's evidence that she wants to do that because she said this.
You don't even tell me to have a good day when I leave out the house.
Did you have a good day today?
She's technically trying to fix things, but she doesn't know how to effectively do it. Now, some of you might know where I'm going with this, especially the women who are listening, but for those of you who don't, there's a popular book called The 5 Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace. If you don't know that book by name, you might recognize it as the book your company uses to make you like your job more without actually paying you more. Jokes aside, though, according to page 35 of that book, it actually doesn't matter how much you pay someone. Of course, people should be paid what they're worth, but if you treat your employees like crap, they will hate their job regardless if they have a high salary or not.
Man, shit, you give me $1,000 an hour, I'm picking cotton, nigga. You tripping. I don't care. You want to motivate me to do a great job? Pay me more. I don't know what he talking about, and I don't know what's in that book. That sounds like a book that was written by somebody that didn't want to pay people and wanted to convince other bosses that they shouldn't pay people, so they didn't have to compete in prices and competing in how much they supposed to pay people an hour. Because you pay me more, I'm going to do a better job. And my ancestors going to be proud of me. They didn't get paid $1,000 an hour to pick cotton. So y'all can make all the adjustments y'all want. Oh, you a sellout, blobbity bloop. I'm going to be counting that money, and I'm going to be taking care of my black family with that $1,000 a day or $1,000 an hour from picking that cotton. You best believe that. You crazy. Yes, massa?
Not. Anyway, the book goes over 5 different ways you can
hour?
show appreciation to the people around you so that they feel like they are working for or doing something nice for a person who deserves it. Based on what the husband said, he doesn't feel like his wife deserves 13 hours of his labor. In order to change that, appreciation can be shown with words of affirmation, acts of service, quality time, gifts, and physical touch. Each person will value these categories differently. For example, in Chapter 7, they point out that most people do not feel appreciated when they get gifts from their boss. It is important that you show appreciation in a way that the person prefers, or it will be perceived poorly.
Yeah, if the appreciation is a pizza party, nigga. My bad, I keep saying that word. But if the prize is a pizza party, yeah, nobody wants it. But you give somebody a $10,000 bonus, that's how you turn a frown upside down.
Or come off as manipulative. If you don't know what categories that you like the most, then you can take the quiz here. As for other people, they can take the quiz too, but ultimately, if you just listen to them, they will eventually tell you what they like. So let's listen to the husband for a second.
I can't come home to a full-course meal. Working all these long goddamn hours, I can't come home to a full-course meal? Huh?
In this video, the husband is very clear about what category will make him feel appreciated for the work that he does. He likes acts of service and feels appreciated when his wife does things for him that make his day easier. If his wife doesn't want him to feel like his 13 hours are being wasted on someone who is ungrateful, then she can do things that save him time. Now, people have a primary category that they like, and they also have a secondary category that they like. Conveniently, the husband actually communicates his secondary category.
You ain't called me all goddamn day since I've been at work.
In this part of the video, he's asking for quality time. If you pay attention, people will tell you what they like. So fixing this relationship could be as simple as making an extra serving of dinner when you cook, and maybe making like a 10-minute phone call during his lunch break.
Yeah.
As much as people on the internet...
But the person has to be willing to do that. And they have to understand the importance of reciprocating value. If out of spite they just refuse to do those things, then there is no way to, even though it's simple, there still be no way to fix it if the person just isn't willing to do that.
That might say that this relationship is broken beyond repair. The reality is that he is asking to spend time with her while she's trying to make up for a mistake she made by asking if he had a good day. It looks like neither of them want their relationship to be over. And the problem with all these one-sided FU arguments from feminist or red pill podcasts is you can take a perfectly savable relationship like this one and radicalize both parties into a costly divorce and a broken family for the kids. That's why these conversations need to have nuance. Communication is important, and I don't think it's a coincidence that the divorce rate is high at the same time that communication skills are at an all-time low. But this issue isn't that hard to fix. There are plenty of books out there like the 5 Languages of Appreciation or the Love Languages book that it's based on, or there are books like How to Win Friends and Influence People that teach you the formula for good communication, and all you have to do is memorize it and practice. The fortunate thing is that everything is already there for you, and you don't have to spend years figuring it out on your own.
Think before you sleep the ideologies that destroy marriages.